How's it going, guys? So in today's tutorial, I'm going to show you how to make this really cool abstract design. I do want to give credit to the artist that came up with these designs. It's made by this artist, Leonardo. He is an incredible artist, loves to use kind of fragmented faces and things like that in his art. And I was really struck by this design right here. And I wanted to recreate it. And I want to show you guys a couple really cool tricks how you can recreate a really interesting design, much like this one. So all credit goes to him. If you want to follow exactly what I'm doing, I'm going to leave the link for this free download in the description, but you can do exactly what I'm doing on literally any model you want. But if you want to make it really interesting like the artist does, we'll use a face model. So let's go ahead and start with a blank document, and we're going to go from File, Import, and we're going to use PLY because that particular model is a PLY, and then I'm going to go ahead and import it. I'm going to go ahead and scale it down to an appropriate size. Control A, apply, scale. Now, what you're going to need to do is go to your preferences here and edit preferences, add-ons, and let's type in cell. And click the little check mark on the cell fracture, and then we're going to go here and hit F3, type in cell, object, quick effects, cell fracture. Let's go here on the source limit. I'm going to give myself 75. Now, right here is when I would suggest saving. So I'm going to click out of it first and go ahead and save as, and we'll call this tutorial. And I'm going to save it on my desktop and save it wherever you'd like. Let's go back here to the cell fracture here. And I'm going to give my source limit at 75. And my noise, actually, I'm going to give my source limit at around 50. And then I'm going to give my noise up to 1. This gives you a nice shape. And this is how many objects are going to be in your scene. Now, careful, this could crash your machine. If you're using the exact model I'm using, the reason why it crashed is because it's a pretty high poly model. If you want to follow along, you can use any other model you'd like, even just a simple isosphere or the Suzanne model, and it really will work on anything. So if it crashes and you still want to follow along, just try it with a different model, but you should be fine. Just click OK, and it may crash right here. Just wait for it to finish. All right, so now that it's done fracturing, I'm just going to click on the model until I get this big base mesh. It leaves it for you in case you need it. I'm just going to go ahead and delete it, and now we have all of my separate pieces. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight everything just like this. And I'm going to go ahead, hit this little drop down and click on individual origins, and I'm going to scale it down something like that. And now you get this really, really interesting look. I'm going to go ahead and just go to the flat shading. Now what I'm going to do is just go ahead and delete a couple of the objects I don't want to have in my composition. Let's go ahead and maybe delete this one too. All right, cool. So now we have something pretty interesting. I'm actually going to bring that other model back in because it works. Now what I want to do is kind of play with these edges and really give it more of a thicker edge. The way I'm going to do that is go ahead to the modifiers. First, let me save because this could crash again. We're dealing with a lot of faces here. Currently, we're dealing with around 200,000. Let's go ahead and get the remesh modifier. We're going to click that, and then let's bring this voxel size down until we get our shape back. And this remesh is really doing some pretty cool stuff. We'll give it 0.01. That's the max we're going to go. After that, Blender will crash. So here we go. We have a much thicker edge, much more jagged edge. I'm going to click smooth shading. And the reason I did that is because not only does it add some character, but it also will give us some really fun opportunities when it comes to shading. I'm going to click on this guy. I'm going to hit A to select everything, Control L, and we're going to copy modifiers and just wait for that to work. There we go. That was pretty quick. Thought it was going to take a little bit longer than that. And I'm going to save my file. This model is really small. I'm just going to go ahead and delete it. You can go ahead and delete some models if they don't kind of suit the vibe you're going for. This nose is kind of weird too. Let's go ahead and delete that. So here we go. We have this really interesting statue kind of looking thing. Right up here, I'm going to go back here to median point because that's the last time we're going to need to do individual origins. So now it behaves like this. Now what I'm going to do is just get my camera going and start working on composition. So I'm going to hit Shift A, camera, Control Alt 0. I'm going to snap my camera to view, and then I'm going to select everything, hit 0 to go back to my camera view, and then I'm going to hit G and then R, and you can hit R twice to rotate it on multiple axes at once, and there we go. We have our composition here, so we can just kind of make it like that. Now, if you want to have a more flat view, click on the camera, go here to focal length and give it 85 millimeter. It does give you a little bit different of a look. If you're a photographer, you may like to do that. So now we have this design here. If we go here to Eevee, this is how it's looking. I'm going to save my file and we're going to go straight into shading. Now this next part is not going to work for you if you only render in the Eevee render engine. We're going to do some edge detection shading that only works in cycles. Now you can still follow along in Eevee and just add whatever other material you'd like. But the next thing we're going to do is do a little bit of shading. So let's click on shading and then we'll get our model here. I'm going to click on one of these. I'm going to click new. And then I'm just going to give it a darker color so we can see it. Now I'm going to hit A, Control L, Materials. Now that I've added that material to everything, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit Shift A, search, get a color ramp here, and we'll plug it right here into the base color. I'm going to go from linear here to constant because we want to have a nice hard edge here for the shading. I'm going to get a mapping node. And we're going to get a geometry node, GEO, geometry, and we'll use pointiness. Now this pointiness node is what's going to allow us to do some fun stuff in the shading. Now I'm going to switch over here to cycles, hit the drop down arrow and unclick these so we can get some lighting into our scene. Now you can see it already starting to work. So we'll play with this color ramp until we kind of get that look we're going for. So now we're getting this nice amount of edge detection, edge wear in our scene. So you can really kind of play with that and get however thick you want. It can kind of go crazy after a while, but this is what we're working with. Looks really cool. It really gives you that nice defined edge look. Let's go ahead and start shading this some more. So I'm going to detach this and we're actually going to use this just as a mask. So I'm going to hit G to move this up. I'm going to go ahead and hit this guy, Shift D and duplicate it. So now what we're going to do, we have that second one. I'm going to get a mix shader here, plug that here, and we're going to plug this right here. Let's go ahead and go up to maybe a bright color here and get in a nice gold. Make it metallic and bring that roughness pretty far down. This already looks really pretty in and of itself. You can have some fun with that, even if you say like you want to make it purple. That looks pretty cool, but we're not going to do that. Like I said, we're going to be using this as a mask. If you've never heard that term, using a texture as a mask means you're going to use that texture to reveal and hide things. So in this case, we're using it as a mask to reveal where we want those materials to show up. And look at that. We already have something really cool. Now, if you didn't do exactly what I did and you have it like this, you're going to have it inverted. So if you want it to look like mine, just make sure that these are plugged in the same spots and you're going to get something pretty cool like this. Let's go ahead and make this white or gray texture a little more interesting. I'm going to save my file. I'm going to hit Shift A and get in a color ramp. And then we're going to get that linear to constant. Let's get a noise texture in OI, noise texture here. And then we'll plug the factor into the color ramp. And we'll get the color into the base color. Let's make this detail of 12. Bring this roughness up. And then we can kind of play with our color ramp to do something like this. Maybe bring our scale to 3. Just like that. Now we have some kind of roughness going on. And then let's make this white portion a nice gold, similar to the one we have already. Now what I want to do is Shift D, duplicate this color ramp, make this a nice white color. And we'll plug the noise texture into that and plug the color into the roughness. So now what I'm going to do here is I actually don't want the black portion to be rough. I actually want the gold portion to be rough. So I'm going to go ahead and flip this color ramp. And we're going to go ahead and get that over here. Now you can start to see it working. So I'm going to go here to Eevee so we can see it a little bit better. So now we can see that roughness kind of playing around, and we can just bring that color ramp until it just encapsulates the golden portion. And let's make this color right here the white we want. And now you can see that looks pretty cool. And you can see that this gold is glossy. Last thing we need to do is manipulate our metallic socket. So let's just minimize that. Shift D, bring that color ramp up, plug the noise into there, and let's plug the color into metallic. So what that did was make this white portion metallic. Let's go back and reflip that color ramp. So now we can go around and bring this in. And now you can see it makes that gold now the metallic gold we want. And look how cool that looks. Now we have this really cool material. I'm going to go ahead and save this. What I want to do next is start adding some variation. So I'm going to click this model right here. Actually, maybe these two I'm going to play with. So I'm going to go ahead and delete that. Click New. Let's go ahead and bring this transmission up and bring this roughness down. So now we've made some glass. I'm going to go ahead and click this model here, hit Shift, click that one, Control L, link materials. Now we have those two. Bring that roughness down just to really show that it's some nice glass. Let's click on this model, and I want to copy the mask. So I'm going to go ahead, Control C, click back on the glass, Control V. I'm going to hit G to bring it down. And we're going to plug the color into emission. So now it's emissive. We can go in and just make this a little thinner, something like this. And then I'm going to hit the drop down and go back to the default lighting here. And let's bring the strength pretty far up, something like this. Change the color to whatever you want. I'm going to give a nice blue here. Now we have something really cool, and let's bring the roughness so we can still see some detail in the model that we're making glow. So now we have something really, really cool. So now we're totally done shading. Let's go straight into lighting. So I'm going to click on the layout here, and I'm going to see where my composition is. I want a light hitting here, a light hitting here, and a light coming from below. So I'm going to hit Shift A, get in a light, area light. I'm going to hit G to kind of move it around to where I want it to be. And then I'm going to hit R twice. I want a light to really kind of clip the edge of this model here, just to get a rim light. So let's go ahead and go from square to disk. I really like disk lights here. Scale it up, go here to the cycles render, and we're going to bring our world brightness down to black. So let's take the brightness of this light here, and we'll give it up to, say, let's go to 1,000 on the brightness here. So now we get, you can see now the rim of this model is nicely lit. We can even make it a lot brighter. Let's go with 2,000. So something like that looks really cool. I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this light and hit the other rim of this model. So let's go ahead and hit R twice and then kind of point it there. And then that's way too much on that side. So I'm going to hit G, move it around, hit R twice again, just kind of move it around the way we want. So there we go. So now we're hitting the rim, the edges of this model. We can even bring it over just a little bit more because we don't want it to be, there we go. I really like this right here. Now let's go ahead and get this model here and hit Shift D. The light, not the model. I'm hitting G to kind of move it around, hitting R twice to move it. And then I'm going to scale it up pretty wide and give it a strength of 100. So now we get some really moody, some kind of soft lighting here on this model. Really makes it look nice and photorealistic. Makes it look really nice and fine art-ish, if you want to call it that. And now we have this really cool looking design. Let's go ahead and render this and get some compositing going to make this look really, really cool. So I'm going to go ahead into this little camera setting. I'm going to give myself 300 samples. And let's go render image. Now that it's rendered, I'm going to go down into the compositing tab. I'm going to click the use nodes, Shift A, search, get in a viewer node, and then plug this into here. So now we can view what we're doing. I'm going to hold down Shift and right click, do that so that everything we put into this line goes straight to the composite, which allows us to render it even if we're rendering an animation, and into the viewer so we can actually view what we're doing. So let's get in a glare node, Shift A, search, glare. And then let's go from streaks to fog glow here. And now we have this really nice looking fog. And if it's too much, if it's too bright for you, you can bring that mix down so it's not quite so bright. I'm going to go ahead, get in another glare node and plug it right here. And we're going to go to streaks. I'm going to bring my streaks down to 2. I'm going to bring my iterations to 5 so there's no cutoff. And then let's bring our fade up a little bit. And then bring our mix down pretty substantially so it's just a subtle effect. And now we have a really cool looking model. We'll go back here to rendering so we can see it. Now we're done. Now if you're not a big fan of noise, I personally like noise. It adds some realism and some sort of style to it. If you don't like that, you can just go ahead and search up the denoise node here, plug it right there, and it will denoise your whole scene. With this one particularly, everything's pretty smooth, so you can kind of get away with denoising it without doing more of the special denoising. And now we're done. We have this really great model, really great design you can use for a lot of things. Again, full credit goes to this artist right here, Leonardo. Did an amazing job. Go ahead and follow him on Instagram. Great stuff. Big fan of his work. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. I hope you learned some stuff, and I'll see you in the next tutorial. Thank you guys for checking that out. I hope you learned some stuff. I want to take a minute and talk about something that I just launched that I'm super excited about. It's called the RealTime Materials. It's a pack of 150 procedural materials that are made to be rendered fast and speed up your workflow. Let me show it to you. So say you have a scene something like this, and I'm going to hop on over into Eevee and kind of show you how this works. So I'm going to hit Shift A, and once you install the zip file that comes with the pack, you'll be able to play with this. So say I want to get something kind of weird but beautiful. We can add this material right here, and the materials work in both render engines, and they look really great in both engines. And so say I can change this base color to something, maybe something green. Now we have something really cool like that, but we can also do a bunch of other stuff. Let's head over to the paint and try out paint number 10. We can kind of zoom in, and you can see all these little imperfections and things like that, and everything you see is editable within these right here, including this color. We can change the color to a green like this, or maybe a dark blue. But again, all this roughness, all these points are super editable here. Now, if you want to edit them, I designed these to be really quickly rendered in Eevee, so you can play with editing all these parameters here. Let's see, play with the scale, kind of mess with those gashes, play with the scale here, mess with some of the size of that. And then also here, you can really mess with that roughness. So they render super fast, they preview super fast. A lot of procedural materials can really put a damper on your renders. These are meant to be super quick, super fun. And you can go in and just change all types of stuff. Say right here, I want to go Shift A and get one of these surfaces that adds these nice imperfections. Add that, boom, really quickly. Now you can start shading a bunch of cool stuff. So you can go ahead and grab that. It's linked in the description. Again, thank you guys for checking out the tutorial, and I will see you in the next video.